Have you ever wondered how one small act of kindness can completely change the course of someone's life? Well, this is the story of a billionaire, a waitress, and a disabled boy, where an unlikely encounter would forever alter their destinies. First, let's meet the father. He's a man who could have anything in the world: money, power, influence. But he's also a man who keeps his emotions and his life tightly locked away behind a polished exterior. He walks into the restaurant with an air of quiet authority, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the worn-out tables and chairs around him. He's a successful businessman, no doubt, but there's something about his demeanor that suggests he's used to handling everything with control. His eyes scan the room as he settles into his seat, looking like someone who doesn't quite know what it's like to need help. Or perhaps, someone who's forgotten the importance of kindness. Now enter the waitress. She's in her mid-20s, with kind eyes that have seen more than her fair share of hardships. She carries herself with grace, despite the weight of her world being carried on her shoulders. A single mother, perhaps? Or maybe just someone trying to make ends meet in a life that hasn't been easy. Today, like any other, she's hustling between tables, making small talk with the customers, serving drinks, and offering smiles. But those smiles hide the exhaustion she feels, physically and emotionally. She's used to long shifts, low tips, and a constant struggle to get by. But today, as she approaches the billionaire's table, her world is about to change. And then there's the boy, sitting quietly, looking up at the world with wide, innocent eyes, his disability visible in the way he struggles with everyday tasks. His hand trembles slightly as he tries to pick up his spoon, his eyes flickering with a mix of frustration and sadness. His father is nearby, watching from the corner of his eye, but the boy needs help. He needs someone to show him patience, to care for him, and in this moment, it's the waitress who notices. It's the waitress who steps in without hesitation, offering a gentle hand to guide the boy as he tries to eat. No words are exchanged, just an unspoken connection that speaks louder than any conversation could. The billionaire watches this moment, his attention drawn not to the wealth or status around him, but to the genuine act of kindness unfolding before his eyes. What he doesn't realize is that this simple, selfless gesture will change not just the life of the waitress, but his own as well. The moment hangs in the air, the soft clink of dishes, the murmur of conversation in the background. It all fades into a quiet hum as the waitress's eyes land on the young boy. She notices it right away. The tremor in his hand, the slight struggle as he attempts to lift his fork to his mouth. His fingers brush against the spoon, but can't quite grip it. His face flushes with frustration, the struggle too much for him to bear alone. It's a familiar scene, one she's seen countless times with children who need a little extra help. But this time, it feels different. She sees beyond the boy's disability and into his need for care, for a moment of understanding. Without a second thought, she steps forward. Her hand hovers gently over his, offering a quiet, reassuring presence. "Would you like me to help?" she asks, her voice calm, tender. The boy nods silently, his eyes meeting hers for a brief moment. Vulnerable, yet trusting. She carefully picks up the spoon, guiding it to his lips with patience and ease. Each motion is deliberate, compassionate. She doesn't rush, doesn't make him feel any less capable. Instead, she creates a safe space where the boy can be himself without shame or frustration. Across the room, the billionaire watches this exchange. His gaze is fixed on the scene unfolding at the table, though he remains still and quiet. He's not the type to openly show emotion, but something about this moment seems to reach him. There's a flicker of something, perhaps empathy, or maybe just a realization that life is more than numbers, than wealth, than power. He watches the waitress, her kind actions unfolding before him. Yet he doesn't speak. He doesn't interrupt. He merely observes. His son's needs are also on his mind. But for the first time in a long while, the billionaire doesn't feel the pressure to fix everything, to be in control. Instead, he's caught in a rare moment of stillness, moved by the simplicity of kindness, something so often overlooked in his high-powered world. But for now, he stays silent, his thoughts swirling with an unfamiliar sense of gratitude for this small, unspoken moment of humanity. As the meal continues, the waitress doesn't leave the boy's side. She doesn't hesitate or rush to finish her task. She simply stays with him, gently guiding his hand, making sure he feels seen and understood. With every bite, there's a quiet patience in her movements. She's not doing this for praise, nor for any form of recognition. It's just who she is, a person who believes in offering kindness when it's needed most, without expectation of anything in return. The boy begins to relax, his earlier frustration fading as he finds comfort in her steady presence. With each helping hand, he gains a little more confidence. The father watches, his eyes tracing the movement of the waitress as she helps his son. He notices the way she doesn't seem to care about the size of her tip or how much attention she's drawing to herself. No, for her, this is just about doing the right thing, about connecting with another human being in a way that goes beyond words or material wealth. She's not doing this for any ulterior motive, and that's what strikes him most. The billionaire is not used to seeing such selflessness in the world he inhabits. The people he surrounds himself with are often after something: status, recognition, a return on their investment. But this waitress, she doesn't want anything. She gives of herself freely, and it's a simple act that is having a profound effect on him. For the first time in what feels like forever, he's forced to confront the idea that money and power can't solve every problem. That sometimes the greatest wealth is found in human connection, in the kindness we show others when it costs us nothing. After a few moments of quiet reflection, the billionaire speaks. His voice is measured, though there's sincerity in his tone that wasn't there before. "You didn't have to do that," he says, his words carefully chosen. "Why did you help him?" The waitress looks up from her task, surprised by the question, but then she smiles, a warm, genuine smile that reaches her eyes. "Because he needed help, and I've been there before. I know what it's like to struggle." There's a pause, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The billionaire watches her, this woman who has nothing to gain from him, yet still gave so freely of her time and care. He's moved, deeply moved. In that brief exchange, he sees her not as a waitress, but as someone with a heart full of empathy, someone who has known hardship but still chooses to show kindness. This moment changes something within him. There's no grand gesture yet, no dramatic turning point, but something shifts. The billionaire begins to realize that his life, as full of success and wealth as it is, has been lacking something that this simple exchange has brought to the forefront: the importance of kindness, of human connection, over the superficial pursuits he spent so many years chasing. As the meal wraps up and the moment of silence between the billionaire and the waitress lingers, there's a quiet intensity in the air. The billionaire feels something stir within him, an unfamiliar pull toward this woman who has shown him, through her simple actions, what it truly means to be human. The realization is undeniable. Her kindness, her selflessness, has touched him in a way nothing else ever has. He watches her for a moment longer, how she moves through the restaurant, helping others with the same care she showed his son. But as the scene unfolds, it's clear to him that she deserves more than this. More than these long hours, these worn-out shoes, this life of constant struggle. Something within him shifts. His eyes no longer fix on his own success, but on the future he could help shape for someone else. Without another thought, he stands up. The moment is a bold one he won't be able to undo. He approaches the waitress, who's wiping down a table, a tired smile on her face as she moves through the motions. She looks up in surprise as he stops in front of her. His face is softened now, the sharp edges of his usual demeanor gone. "I've been thinking," he begins, his voice steady but full of sincerity. "You've done something today that most people would never even consider. You show compassion, and that's rare. I want to do something for you, something that will change your life." The waitress looks at him, a bit confused, unsure of where this conversation is going. "I don't understand," she says softly, her exhaustion apparent in her voice. The billionaire takes a deep breath, his next words coming out with unexpected conviction. "I want to help you. I want to make sure that you don't have to struggle anymore. I'll pay for your education, or if you have a dream you've been putting on hold, I want to help you pursue it. I'll also make sure your family is provided for, if that's what you need. No strings attached. You deserve better than this." Her eyes widen in disbelief. This is a man who could buy anything, except this kind of genuine generosity. Her heart races, a mix of shock and gratitude flooding through her. "But why?" she stammers, her voice shaking with emotion. The billionaire looks at her, and for the first time, there's a rawness in his gaze, a recognition of the power of kindness and human connection. "Because you taught me something today," he says quietly. "You showed me that there's more to life than wealth. You reminded me that sometimes the simplest acts can have the most profound impact." The waitress is speechless, her hand trembling as she wipes away a tear that threatens to fall. She never expected this. This wasn't a reward for what she did. It was a gesture that spoke to her heart, a recognition of her worth that she never knew she deserved. For the first time in years, she feels as though her life is on the verge of something new, something extraordinary. And all of it, came from a moment of compassion that she never thought would lead to anything more. The days that follow are a whirlwind for the waitress. At first, she's not sure if it was all just a dream, a fleeting moment that she would wake up from. But as the billionaire's promise starts to take shape, her life begins to transform in ways she never imagined possible. The financial assistance arrives first, enough to pay off her debts and ease the burden of living paycheck to paycheck. Then comes a scholarship, an opportunity to attend school and pursue her dream of becoming a nurse, something she put on hold for years, thinking it would never be within reach. She still finds herself waking up in the middle of the night, unsure if this is all real. She checks her bank account again, just to be sure. And each time she sees that balance, her heart skips a beat. It's not just money. It's a chance to build something for herself, to stop living in survival mode. She can finally look at the future and not be overwhelmed by fear. Her reaction is a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. There are moments when she catches herself in tears, sitting quietly in her room, just breathing in the reality of it all. She thinks about how her life was once full of struggle, how she spent every day working hard just to get by, never imagining that kindness from a stranger could lead her to this point. And then there are the moments when she looks at her son, who is thriving now, full of joy and confidence, knowing that she's able to give him a future that's brighter than she could have ever dreamed. The waitress knows that her story is rare, that most people never get a second chance like this. But she also knows that this transformation didn't happen because of luck. It happened because someone chose to see the humanity in her. Someone decided to offer kindness without expecting anything in return. And in that simple act, her life changed forever. It's a lesson she holds close to her heart. Sometimes, it's the smallest gestures that can have the greatest impact. A smile, a helping hand, a moment of patience. In a world that often seems to move too fast, it's these simple acts of kindness that can spark the most profound shifts. As she continues to build a better life, she thinks back to the billionaire and the son he loves so much. She's grateful for the way he saw her, for the way he took a moment to recognize her worth when no one else would. It's a reminder that sometimes a single act of kindness can ripple outward and change the world one life at a time. As time passes, the billionaire finds himself unable to shake the memory of that day, the memory of the waitress, her selfless kindness, and the way it opened his eyes to a world he had long neglected. He begins to reflect on the life he's built, one that's full of achievements and success, yet strangely empty in ways he had never acknowledged before. His world, once dominated by meetings and deals, now seemed smaller, more insignificant compared to the profound impact of what he witnessed. The more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that his pursuit of wealth, status, and power had led him to overlook the true treasures in life: compassion, human connection, and the simple joy of helping others. For years, he had been consumed by the drive to achieve, to conquer, to accumulate. But in witnessing the waitress's quiet act of generosity, he learned that there's far more value in giving, in making a difference in someone else's life, than in anything money could ever buy. He begins to change, slowly at first, then more deliberately. He starts looking for opportunities to show kindness in his own life, not just in grand gestures, but in everyday moments. Whether it's offering a listening ear to a colleague, donating to causes he believes in, or just taking time to help someone without expecting anything in return, he starts embracing the idea that it's these small acts of compassion that truly shape the world. As for the waitress, her life continues to blossom, and her success serves as a reminder to the billionaire of the power of kindness. What he once saw as a fleeting moment now stands as a permanent fixture in his life, forever shaping his outlook. He knows that he'll never be the same man he was before that day, because witnessing true empathy and seeing it change someone's life has transformed him as well. And so, as the story comes to a close, we are left with a powerful lesson. Life has a way of throwing unexpected moments our way, moments that can change us forever if we're open enough to see them. It's a small act of kindness, the quiet moments of compassion, that have the potential to shape our futures, to change lives, and to heal wounds we didn't even know existed. In a world that often feels fast-paced and impersonal, we must remember that every moment holds a potential to make a difference. That kindness is never wasted, and that sometimes the smallest gesture can leave the biggest mark on the world.